It's good to see all of you here tonight. I appreciate you being here. It's been a couple of weeks since we've been together. We want to continue our study on From the Basics to Unbelievable, our Sunday School leadership training here at First Baptist. We have a session tonight that I simply just called 6 Intangible Imperatives for Sunday School Growth. We know that the word intangible means maybe something you can't really put your hands on. It's not really a tool. It's not a method per se. But there are things that you've got to possess, some intangible things that you've got to possess to lead the Sunday school class to growth. And so tonight we want to talk about some of these things because these are things that we really need. And what you find out is when you see these 6 things I'm going to talk about, the classes in our church that are experiencing the most growth right now, most of those classes have these intangibles. You see it active in the class. And so you can have maybe 1 or 2 of them and not have the other 4. But the truth is we really need all of these to be present in our personal lives as leaders here in the church. Now there's a principle for ministry that says this: if you lay down the deposit of your life, your time, and your money, God will always pay the dividends at just the right time. Now, for several sessions, what we've talked about would be Sunday school growth methods. There are methods of every kind and description for a growing church like ours. Things to do, actions to put in place, goals to set, strategies to implement, those kind of methods. And these methods we are employing at First Baptist Church that we've been talking about, when you put those into place, they are proven to work over and over again. Yet we need more in our classes and in our lives than just the right methodology. Now that's what we want to kind of think about tonight. In addition to good knowledge about Sunday school growth methods, I believe that there are some intangibles that a Sunday school leader and a church leader must possess in their lives if they are to be successful for the Lord and effective for the Lord. These intangible imperatives that I'm going to talk to you about tonight are not really found in books per se. These are not usually topics of a Sunday school training event or materials. And I've gone to lots and lots of Sunday school training material events, and all from Lifeway. I've taught all of them. I've taught out at Glorietta a couple of times for pastors from all over the United States and a few from Canada. And when you looked at all the topics, nobody talked about these things. And what I want to say to you is this: really good Sunday school methods without these imperatives, these intangible imperatives I'm talking about, are not as effective. Now, I want to show you as we go through this what I'm talking about. It's not one or the other. It's not methods and intangibles. It's both working together that make us successful. And I had this discussion with a couple of our teachers a few weeks ago because they were saying, you know, I'm trying to do some of those things you talked about, but I'm just going to tell you, my class is not going to do anything. My class is this, my class is that, my class is that. And I thought to myself, okay, what I see here is you understand the method, but you don't know how to apply it and you don't know how to lead it. So that's what we're going to kind of talk about tonight, of what a leader really needs in their life. These intangibles are found within the heart and the life of a believer. Okay? So what are these 6 intangible imperatives we're talking about tonight? Well, number 1, I believe to be an effective leader, you must have a burden on your heart. A burden on your heart. Paul talked about this in Romans 9, 1 through 3. He said, I speak the truth in Christ. I'm not lying. My conscience is testifying to me with the Holy Spirit that I have intense sorrow and continual anguish in my heart. For I could almost wish to be cursed and cut off from the Messiah for the benefits of my brothers, my own flesh and blood. Now, if you're reading that in the context, he's talking about Jewish people who will not follow Jesus. And he's saying, this is a burden that's on my heart. I'm so burdened that they'll be saved that it's almost, my heart is so sorrowful. I'm grieving. I'm almost depressed over the fact they will not listen to the message of Jesus. So here you see the burden on Paul's heart. Now here's a burden. What a burden is. A burden is a weight or a heaviness or a load on your heart that doesn't go away. As a Christian, as a Sunday school leader, what is it that burdens you? What is the burden that you have? Is there a burden on your heart for the people in your class? Whether it's children, teenage boys, teenage girls, young adults, couples, senior adults, men, women. Do you have a burden on your heart for the people in your class? What about the people in our community? What about the people in our world who don't know Jesus? Now, what I want to say to you is we have leaders in our church that have no burden on their heart related to the things of God because they don't really have a burden even for their class. Because they won't follow up with people who are absent. They won't reach out to new enrollees. They have no prayer going on in their class. They have no follow-up going on in their class. They have very little fellowship going on in their class. And there's no way you can tell me, as the teacher of the class, you have a burden on your heart for the class. But none of those things happen. They don't make attempts with new things with the class. They don't try new things. They have no burden on their heart. They just go through the motions, go through the rote memory, week after week after week, as if it's some sort of duty or drudgery that they're called to. So if you know you don't even have a burden for your class, then you know you don't have a burden for the community. You sure don't have a burden for the world. All right? So that's things we need to know. Is this burden a driving and motivating factor of your life? It should be. Now the burden that Paul had for people to be saved and have their lives changed by the gospel was mixed, he said, with sorrow and with anguish. What we read here is that his heart was continually burdened for those people. It didn't go away. It wasn't something that he got in a revival service and it sort of faded away a couple of weeks later. It wasn't something he went to a gospel singing and got a little wound up that night and then a couple of weeks later it went away. That's not what happened. His burden didn't go away. The burden he had was for people to be saved. I mean, think about it. What we read here is that his heart was burdened for these people. And what we know is this burden was Paul's mission. The burden that was on his heart is why Paul endured such hardships and persecution when a lot of other people would have quit. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm thinking the first shipwreck that I was in, if I was able to get out alive, I would have to question whether or not I even wanted to get back on the ship, right? Much less to get on a ship and go to another place and get shipwrecked again. You know, the first time everybody picked up stones and stoned me, you know, I'm probably thinking, you know, I might want to change my methodology so I don't get stoned next time I show up, right? The first time he was in prison, you were thinking, I don't like prison. I don't want to do anything to go back to prison, right? But he did all those things over and over again because the burden on his heart for people to be saved, for their lives to be changed, is what drove him to endure hardships and persecution and suffering. That's what made him work harder, study more, and be more clearly focused in his ministry and his leadership. Paul had a burden for the Lord, for the Lord's work, and for the lost. Now I wonder tonight, as a Sunday school leader at First Baptist Church, is that the burden you have? Do you really have a burden for the Lord and the Lord's work and lost people, unreached people? What would happen at First Baptist Church if our leaders, Sunday school leaders, deacons, church leaders across the board, what if we really genuinely had a burden for the Lord, the Lord's work, and for lost people? What do you think would happen? Somebody tell me. It's not a rhetorical question. What do you think would happen if we really had a burden for that? What would happen?
People will be saved.
People will be saved all the time.
Yeah. Growth.
We would not be able to build enough buildings to hold the people. We wouldn't have enough services on Sunday to hold the people if we really got a burden.
Clay, I think too, you'd see people transformed and lives really authentically changed.
I think so too. I think you would see husbands being different, and I think you'd see mamas being different. I think you'd see marriages different. I think the way we spend our money would be different. I really think the way that we talk to others and the way we treated others would be different. I think the way that we approached things in our community that are moral issues like poverty and addiction would be completely different if we really had a burden on our heart for the Lord's work and lost people. So if those things are not happening in multiplication numbers, we have to really ask ourselves, do we really have that kind of burden? I mean, when's the last time that you stayed up at night because you had such a burden on your heart over somebody that was going to hell? I mean, everybody in this room, we all have family members that are going to hell. They don't know Jesus. When was the last time we shed one tear praying over them? Or even prayed for them at all? We're the leaders, guys. We're the leaders. So, if we don't have a burden, what makes us think the people in our Sunday school classes are going to have a burden? Does that make sense to everybody? We are a people who get burdened about things. We get burdened about things, but we get burdened about things that are really insignificant. You know, we get burdened about football games and getting ready for events and parties. We get burdened about whether or not we recorded our favorite television show. We get burdened about whether or not we're going to miss our Netflix series. We get burdened over purchasing new possessions. We get burdened over our social media accounts. But we don't get burdened over lost people, or people who are unchurched, or people who are absent. I mean, it would just be an amazing thing what would happen in our church if our Sunday school classes got a real burden for people who were on their roll, who at one time came to this church, who no longer come. And they actually made a real live class effort to reach every single one of those. Showed up at their house, had a talk with them, prayed over them, shared with them, trusted God for their lives. What would happen then? What do you think if we did that just with absentees? I know what would happen. Our Sunday school average attendance would probably go up 100 in the next 2 or 3 months. Talking about a burden. See, here's the thing. You can have all of these great Sunday school methods and do all of this kind of stuff, but if you don't have a real burden for the Lord, is it going to be effective? If you don't have a real burden for the Lord's work or lost people, is it really going to be effective? Probably not. Now here's what you can do to see the genuine burden of a Sunday school leader. All right? Here's how you test it. I don't think I put this in your notes, but let me just tell you. In a 12-month period of time, all you have to do is go back and look at their Sunday school enrollment and ask, did it increase, did it decrease, or did it remain the same? And you know something about the burden of the Sunday school leader. Look at their average class attendance from 12 months ago to now. And you can see about the burden of a Sunday school leader and the burden of the class. Look at how many of the people in the class in the last 12 months are getting involved, more are getting involved in real hands-on ministry in and through the class and the church. How many people in the class last year went on a mission trip, and how many went on a mission trip this year were involved in a mission project? How many class members are now having a daily devotion time with the Lord as opposed to a year ago? You see what I'm saying? You see, this intangible business about a burden leads to tangible results. A burden on our heart for the Lord, His work, and loss cannot be replaced by having a bigger budget. A lot of churches around us all the time say something like this to me. Well, if I had the kind of budget First Baptist Church has, we'd reach more people too. And I tell them, no, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. I said, if you and I if we exchanged buildings and budgets, you would not reach more people than you reach right now. They say, why? I said, because you have no plan to reach people. You have no strategy to train people to reach people. You have no outreach program. You have no outreach strategy, no outreach ministry. And until you have any of those kind of things, you're not going to reach people. So it doesn't matter what building you're in, it doesn't matter how big your budget is if you don't have a strategy to reach people and a burden on your heart to do so. So it's not by a bigger budget. It's not by activities and fellowships. It's not by having a new building or slick logos or slogans or advertisement or inflated reputation. None of those things can overcome not having a burden. Sunday school growth methods, like we've been talking about for several weeks, are dry and dusty like old bones in the desert if we don't have a burden on our hearts for the work and for people. A Sunday school classroom without a burden is a lifeless, empty shell of space. A Sunday school teacher without a genuine burden for the Lord's work and loss is a teacher that's powerless. Lessons or church services without a burden for the Lord, lost people, and the Lord's work bear no fruit. A burdened heart is what separates extraordinary teachers, preachers, Sunday school ministries, and churches from ordinary. So here's how it works. A burdened heart plus total faith in God equal victories for Jesus and effectiveness at reaching the lost and growing believers. So I would say to you tonight, the very first thing we need to really ask ourselves is, do we have a burden on our heart? And is it real? Number two, not only must you have a burden on your heart, number two, you must have a clear sense of urgency. Okay? You can have a burden on your heart and never get around to doing anything. You know that? You can be really burdened about something but never do anything about it. Never do a thing. Jesus said, don't you say there are still 4 more months then come the harvest? Listen to what I'm telling you. Open your eyes and look at the fields, for they are ready for harvest. What is a sense of urgency? A sense of urgency is our internal alarm system that tells us to, quote, get busy, hurry up, be quick, stop wasting time, and get to work. All right? So many times this sense of urgency is an absentee trait in the life, in the planning, in the thinking of many leaders and even Baptist churches. And I would go as far as say even Baptist associations. Dr. Thrower was association missionary for a long time here. And one of the things that he told Stan when he came was, one of the things that I've noticed about our association is if you think a church moves slow, an association moves even slower. And Stan went, really? He went, yeah, that's true. And Stan has found that out to be true as the new association missionary, because what we have is we have a bunch of people who are leading our churches that have no sense of urgency about anything. They have no sense. All they want to do. You know, I know we ought to have some simultaneous revivals and a big youth event, but you know what, we ought to slow down a little bit on making those plans. We need to form a committee, and we need to study this for about 6 months. Now, see, I got a problem with that. Since when do you have to study whether or not you're going to reach people for Jesus? When do you have to study whether or not you ought to have revival? Why would an association spend time forming a committee to have a study on whether or not we ought to have revival? I mean, that's silly to me. But that's the way pastors in our association think. Okay? And it's really frustrating. And so it happens in churches too. Happens in churches. We get ready to make a big move and do something great for the Lord and step out there on faith. And there's always those that, you know, we really need to slow this thing down a little bit. We need to really hold up. We need to maybe study this for a few months before we bring this to the church and those kind of things. Started talking to some people, deacons and others, saying, you know, in January we're going to come to the church and we're going to present about our new building project. And no deacon, the deacons were like, that's awesome. Awesome. Let's do this thing, right? Everybody got great feedback after the meeting. But then they started telling other people that. Other people started saying, you know, I think that might be a little quick. We've only been studying this for less than a year. I don't think we ought to be maybe jumping out there too quick. I mean, we've only studied this for less than a year. I said, you just bought a new truck, didn't you? Yeah. How long did you study on buying a new truck? Well, I just went down there and started looking at a new truck and made such a good deal, I decided to buy it. Oh, you didn't study it out in a year? Because it's funny how you, at your house, didn't have to study anything out to spend your money. But when it comes time to do something great for the Lord to reach people, well, you think we ought to study it out. I said, well, that kind of makes sense, doesn't it? I said, yeah, it does. So I went, we're not going to study it out. We've been studying it out. The folks we're studied out. And so you're going to get to hear about it on January 13th. There ain't another thing we can study. All right? We're studied till we can't study anymore. And I got folks in here on the committee that'll say amen to that. All right? So we're going to move forward. Now, here's the thing we got to understand in churches. We can't deliver God's timeless, life-changing truths in an overnight FedEx or an instant download world by Pony Express. All right? If I want to watch a movie, I can pick the phone up out of my pocket right now, click one button, and guess what I can do? I can watch a movie on my phone in about 30 seconds. I can download it instantaneously and watch it. All right? If I want to order something on Black Friday, it's at my house before Monday. Because Amazon Prime delivers within 2 days. You know, it's just amazing. That's the world we live in. All right? And we're used to this kind of world in everything but things of God. We need people who have some urgency about the Lord's work. We need folks with an urgency about reaching the lost who are headed to hell all around us. We need people who lead Sunday school classes each week as if that was the last time you would ever get to expose the people in your class to the truth of God's Word. Now, that'd be a radical way to start teaching, wouldn't it? Are we promised next week? Absolutely not. I promise you, if you'd asked Benny Scott on that Sunday, will you be here next Sunday? He said, well, yeah, I'll be here next Sunday. But he wasn't. If you'd have asked Allie Henderson, when she got out of bed that morning, are you going to graduate high school and go to college? She would have said, well, of course I am. But she didn't. And the Bible says that at any time the Lord can return again. At any time. So we ought to teach and we ought to preach as if that is the last opportunity these folks in our class will ever get exposed to the truth of God's Word to do something. We ought to teach and preach with that kind of urgency. I remind myself of that every single Sunday. I tell myself every Sunday there are people that will hear you preach today that may never hear another opportunity. Not one more time. So we need to lead our classes that way. Whatever we're going to do for Jesus in this life, we ought to get busy and do it now. Not one day out there too soon. It's going to be over with. You know, not one day is too soon. Not one moment is too soon. We need to trust God. We need to step out on faith. And we need to let God work out the details. We need an urgency. Leon Kilbreth was called Mr. Sunday School USA. I don't know if you ever got exposed to Leon Kilbreth. When I was a real young pastor, Leon Kilbreth was probably 85, 86 years old at the time, and he traveled the whole country doing Sunday school revivals and Sunday school renewal weekends. He was one of my mentors in ministry. And he said one time this about the urgency. He said, on the shores of hesitation are the bones of countless thousands who sat down to wait, and in waiting, they died. They didn't do anything. And here's the test for this. If Jesus walked in your Sunday school class this Sunday, would he commend your class? Would he point out how many new people your class members have enrolled in 2018? Would Jesus point out the number of people who are now attending Sunday school and studying His Word as a result of the ministry of your class this year? Would Jesus point out the names of people who have been saved as a direct result of the work of your class this year? Would he mention the number of new leaders who have come out of your class to help multiply the ministry of Sunday school this past year? That's the test. Speaks to our urgency. So we need a burden on our hearts about the Lord's work, and the lost. We also need a clear sense of urgency to get the work done. There are people dying and going to hell all around us every day in this city and county because too many Christian people who are the closest ones to them do not have a sense of urgency to tell them about the good news of Jesus. It's something we're going to get around to doing. We're going to do it one day, sometime out there in the future. Number 3. I think another intangible that's helpful to us is you must have a clear vision for your class, or a dream for your class. Paul said, brothers, my heart's desire and prayer to God concerning them is for their salvation. He's talking about his vision. Do you have a vision or a dream for your Sunday school class? Do you have a vision or a dream for First Baptist Church? My vision for the Sunday school of First Baptist Church is over the next 5 or 6 years to grow our Sunday school to over 1,000 in average Sunday school attendance every week of people who are participating in weekly Bible study, involved in mission projects, doing ongoing mission endeavors, and participating in evangelism. I don't want just folks to sit and see. I want 1,000+ people who are in this church every week who are actively being disciples of Jesus Christ. Now, how many of you believe that can happen? Do you believe that? I believe it can happen. I mean, I believe it can happen just... I'll be very shocked and very disappointed if by the time we have revival in February, we're not knocking on 800 every Sunday. I promise you, with the momentum we have started in our church right now, if we'll do anything that we've talked about, method-wise and things we're talking about right now in our classes, and start these new classes in January that we've been talking about starting, I really believe that we're going to run our Sunday school up for sure by Easter to over 800 in Sunday school. Now, the reason I know that that's possible is a year ago, our bottom number was 600. And a year ago, I was saying in the same kind of meeting, if you were here, what we need to be doing by this time next year is our bottom number needs to be what? 700. 700. You know, we've only had one Sunday below 700 in like the last 20 Sundays. And that was the week of spring break. So our bottom number now is like 700. We're averaging for the year now, the whole year included, the whole church year starting in July, we're averaging like 703. And that includes July 4th weekend and Memorial Day weekend and, you know, spring break average in there, all those kind of things, right? So I guarantee you 800's out there, and then 900, then 1,000. It's out there. We got to keep working at it. Now, when Paul said, my heart's desire and prayer to God in Romans 10:1, he was casting a vision to the believers in Rome that he was leading. He was casting a vision. He was saying, this is my vision for these people. This is my number one priority of life. This is what gets me out of bed every day. This is why I endure hardships and persecutions. This is the most pressing matter on my heart. My heart's desire and prayer is for them to be saved. So teacher, what's your vision for your Sunday school class? Do you have a vision for your Sunday school class? I mean, if I were to ask you, what is your vision for 2019 for your Sunday school class, could you articulate it? Could you write it down? Is it written down anywhere? Do your class members know what it is? Have they heard you share your vision for the class? Could they articulate what your vision is for the class? Can they repeat it? Do they know what it is? So what does a teacher, leader with a vision from God do? If you have a vision, here's what it is. Number one, you set a pattern and an example for others to follow. In other words, when you have a clear vision that's clearly stated, what you've done is you've raised the bar for everybody in your class. Everybody, we need to raise where we are right now if we're ever going to reach this level of what we're trying to reach the vision with. And I'm going to be the example of it. I'm going to be the example. I'm not going to ask you to do something I'm not willing to do. That's not leadership. That's dictatorship. Leadership, good leaders, they lead by example. They do what they ask the people to do in their class or their church. All right? Number two, leaders with a vision, what they do, they take down the walls of tradition. See, your vision has got to be greater than what you've always done. Most people don't even know why they do something a certain way just because they came into the class in the way it was always done. They don't know why. They don't even know if it's effective or not. So what I know is vision from God is greater than our traditions. Number three, it challenges the impossible with faith. See, if you're going to reach a vision, if you're going to accomplish a vision that you have for life, you got to exercise some faith, right? It's not going to happen without faith. Number four, it tears down barriers to growth and the vision. So anything that becomes a barrier to your class growing, the vision, and keeping everybody focused on the vision and working toward the vision and working toward the goals, what it does, it removes barriers. It reveals barriers first, and then you remove those barriers. Now, number five, it overcomes obstacles set in the path by Satan. Does Satan want your class to grow? Nope. Does he want it to decline? Yep. Does he want folks in your class mad at each other about something stupid? Uh-huh. Does he want them to fall into just the routine of tradition of we've always done it this way and we don't care about anything else, yep, obstacles. Number 6, a person with vision can endure criticism and cynics because your vision from God is bigger than other people's criticism of you. Now, I tell young preachers this. I remember talking to Ryan about this when I first moved here. He had a hard time. Ryan originally, when I first came here, he went from being the intern to having the job, but having the job with no leadership in the church. And so he's like, what do we do here? I'm just like, well, you've got to figure out where you want this thing to go. I want to know what your vision is. You come back to me and you cast to me your vision for student ministry in this church. And he did. Put it on paper. He cast a vision. I helped him refine it a little bit. We set goals. We were very clear on what to do. And I said, now here's the thing you got to understand. There are people in this church that do not want you to reach this vision, because to reach this vision is going to mean changing the way we do things. It's going to mean reorganizing the way we do things. It's going to mean rebudgeting our money a different way, because you can't budget the money we have right now and do what you want to do. It means getting a bunch of new leaders and training a bunch of new leaders. You're going to have critics. Did Ryan have critics? Sure did. You may not know who they are, but I do. Because who would they come complain to? For the first 4 months I was pastor of this church, every day, 1 to 5 people walked in my office to complain and act ugly about something. Every single day. So what did I do with those people? I shared my vision. I just shared my vision. Thank you, I appreciate your input, but here's what we're going to do. Here's my vision. Here's what we're going to do in this church. And I know it was hard back over there, but I could care less about what happened over here. That has nothing to do with me. Because on January 10th, 2016, I was voted as the pastor of this church, and I only care what happens starting that day forward. Anything happened before that time, care less. Don't care. Big deal. Get over it. Because here's what we're going to do going forward. That's all I care about. Going forward. And here's how we're going to go forward. Now, you get a choice to be on board with that or not. And if you don't want to be on board with it, look, you're not going to hurt my feelings. God bless you. The Lord loves you. You can't lose your salvation over it. And there's lots of other folks in this, a lot of other people, churches in this community that are doing nothing that would love to have you. Now, you see, that sounds harsh, doesn't it? But I wasn't being harsh at all. I was just being real with them. Because, see, they walked in the door to attack me and my leadership and the leadership of my church staff. Specifically related to student ministry, children's ministry, music ministry. Okay? And so, I want you to know not one of those people left the church. Every one of those people are not only on board, but they're serving and doing ministry. Some of them who came to my office have been on mission trips, like overseas mission trips, who've gotten involved in Hope Ministry up here, who have helped us send students to Brazil, who walked in my office and wrote big fat checks to help send some students to Brazil. What happened was the vision is bigger than critics, right? The vision is bigger than cynics. Because what happens is when people start seeing the vision and they start accepting the vision, they say, this didn't really hurt me. It actually is helping me. And it's helping my class, and it's helping my family, it's helping whatever. Then cynics become supporters. And critics become quiet. And that's what happens in time. And so what I'm saying is sometimes when you go to your Sunday school class, sometimes it's not a bad thing that if you get a little pushback up front, because Satan doesn't want you doing anything bigger than what you're doing now. So if you don't get pushback a little bit from folks somewhere, I would go, oh, this may not really be of God. Because Satan always opposes God, right? He always opposes God's plan. I don't know who it was, Adrian Rogers, Billy Graham, that says, that something about that, they got through preaching, and the fellow came up to him and said, well, I like to say, preachers, you've been stroking the cat the wrong way tonight. He said, no, it wasn't. The cat was going the wrong direction. And that's kind of the way it is. Also, it makes a difference in the lives of others for the glory of God, and it stays focused on the things that make a difference and are significant. It's so easy for me and for you to get sidetracked on things that don't matter, right? Now, there's 10 factors that will destroy your vision. Okay, if you aren't careful. Real quick, let me go through these. Number one, when people say there are some things you just cannot change around here and you believe it. That's what I heard for 4 months as pastor of this church when I became pastor of the church. People came and told me, you can do anything you want to, but don't change this. I mean, just have a whole list of stuff. It's really funny stuff. And I went, well, the truth of the matter is, that is going to be changed. And here's why it's going to be changed. Well, why would you change? I said, because it's just something you enjoy doing. And it's something that I would enjoy doing, but it doesn't reach anybody for Jesus. And it doesn't have any impact in our community. It doesn't make a difference. It doesn't fit into my mission strategy whatsoever. It'd be good to do, be kind of, fun, kind of fellowshipy. And it's something that I know people like doing, but we're not going to do that anymore. Really? Yeah, really. Well, when's that going to stop? It's already stopped. You just hadn't, nobody told you yet. It's already stopped. And again, stop being mean. It's just you got to have the vision is big, right? The vision's got to be bigger. It's bigger than what I want. Let me just say this to you. There are a lot of things we do at First Baptist Church that I don't like, that I lead and promote and are on board with because they're effective. But it's not my personal preference. It's not my personal preference. But see, it's not about my personal preference. None of this is. It has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with me. It's all about the Lord's vision, right? And so we got to always keep that out there. Number two, some people say, after all, you cannot expect people to do the impossible. Why? I'm just the opposite of that. I expect people to do the impossible. I think that when you add the Lord Jesus Christ to your life, then anything that's impossible becomes possible. That's what I think. That's my theology. I live that way. I believe that way. I believe with Christ, all things are possible. I really do. Number three, I guess our goals were just set too high. No, probably just didn't do anything to reach the goal. Number four, that just will not work at our church, or our class or church. It just will not work. And my question to that always is why. Anybody says it won't work, ask them why. Tell me why. Show me why. Take out a piece of paper and write down for me why it will not work. Tell me why it won't work. I always want to know that. Because if there's one person who tells you it will not work, there's 15 others just like them who agree with him. And so I want to know where they're coming from. Because I want to know if they're right or not. First of all, if it won't work, tell me why it won't work. Because there's something I don't know. If there's something I don't know, I want to know. But most of the time what it comes down to, if people say it won't work, means it's not my personal preference. I don't personally like that, so I don't think it'll work. Okay? So that's what that goes back to. Number five, let's be reasonable and logical about these things. Yeah, I'm a very reasonable and very logical person, but sometimes, if you read the Bible, sometimes what God does from heaven on earth is neither reasonable nor logical. It's just the work of God, where all you work, you stand back and you go, I can't explain that, except that God did that. God did that. All right? There's people in our church who are walking around right now that doctors said several years ago, you won't probably live 12 months, but they're still here. Carolyn Hull's one of those people. Carolyn Hull was told, we can't do anything else for you. Memphis told her, can't do anything for you. Nashville, we can't do anything for you. We can't help you. This cancer you have is not curable. We can't do anything. We're sorry. Did she give up and quit? No. Y'all seen Carolyn walking around anywhere recently? Yeah, that's right. Because she didn't give up and quit. And she went to found a place that could help her. And now what they were doing back then that started, now everybody else does as a normal, regular thing. Because they were just sort of cutting edge and it worked perfect with her. All right? So we know that to be true. Some people say, we're just not at the right place at the right time. Now, this is from the mouth of people who think that if I just had a different classroom, or if I had a bigger classroom, then my class would grow. Or my class would grow if I just had a different age group. Or if I just had a different demographic of people, then my class would grow. And that's not true. This is preacher talk, okay? Again, the people that say, well, if I had your buildings and your budget at First Baptist, then my church would grow. No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't grow. But I can tell you, if I take the vision we have at First Baptist Church of reaching people for Jesus, I can put it in any building in this county and it's going to grow. Because it's not about us. It's not about a building. It's not about a budget. What's it about? It's a burden. It's an urgency for lost people. Okay? It's training people. It's going after people who are lost. Okay? And so that's what works. But preachers say that kind of stuff all the time. I'm convinced that if we can't do it where we are with who we have already, then what makes us think a different class, a classroom, or people would make it different? My mother proved that theory to be true several years ago. There was a senior adult ladies class in the church at First Baptist Church, Alexander City, Alabama. And kind of like what you're talking about, Francis, a while ago. These ladies have been together for 20 plus years. Same classroom, same teacher. Teacher died. So my mother decided to leave the young married adults and go teach senior adult women. And I remember asking her, why did you decide to do that? She said, because that class can really grow. There are senior adult women all over our community that are not going to church anywhere. I meet them all the time. And they maybe used to go to church, but they don't go to church anywhere, or they're moving in here because this has now become more of a retirement area. And I really believe that we can reach senior adult women. I went, okay. I said, what are you going to do? She said, the same thing I did with young adult men and women. I'm going to find me some leaders. I'm going to train them. We're going to visit. We're going to reach out to people. We're going to pray together. We're going to do fellowships. We're going to do ministry. We're going to get involved in a monthly mission project. We're going to do all this stuff. We're going to do it together. I said, you think you can get those senior adult women to do it? She says, I don't have to get all of them. All I got to get is a few. She said, because I don't have to influence them. The few I get will influence the rest of them. And my mother's one class turned into a senior adult women's department in 5 years. A department. Her one class became 5 classes in 5 years. Why? She realized that it doesn't matter where you are or who you've got. If you have a burden and you have an urgency and you have a plan and you enforce the methods of those things, you don't have to get everybody on board. All you got to do is figure out who is on board and go with the goers. Don't worry about the other bunch. Go with the goers. The next one. I hear this all the time in our church. I'm getting too old to do these things. Just let young new people do it. That's unbiblical, by the way. Number 8. Well, we're doing pretty good under the circumstances. What are the circumstances? Under what circumstances? I don't want to live under circumstances. I want to be on top of circumstances, don't you? Number 8. I just don't have enough time and training and education to do fill in the blank. People that, in a Baptist church, people that tell me that, I go, nah, that's not true. You've been in church a long time. You know more about the Bible than most people in the world. There's people in seminary that don't have as much biblical education as people that sit in your Sunday school class, Francis. You know that? They got seminary degrees. And they don't know as much about the Bible as what ladies in your class do right now. Number 10, I just never had the right opportunity and people will not listen to me. I've been told that. Number 4, not only do you need a burden and urgency and a clear vision, number 4, you've got to have a desire to do something. Again, Paul said, my heart's desire in prayer to God. My prayer as pastor is this: Lord, just give me some leaders with some desire to do something great for you. I don't have to have 100. If I have 5, 10, 15, 20, I'll take what I can get. I'll go with the goers, right? And the goers will influence other goers, and they'll influence other goers, and in time it sort of takes over. So you must have a desire and drive to succeed at anything you attempt to do that is great for the Lord. So, desire. Here's the questions. What is the real desire of your class toward helping the church to grow? What is your real desire as a teacher to help the church grow? If I could sit down with you one-on-one individually and ask you the question, tell me, in the last 12 months, what are 3 or 4 things that you have personally done as a Sunday school leader to not only help your class to grow, but to help our church grow? What are those things? Could you tell me anything? Desire. Desire. What is the real desire of your class toward evangelism? Well, I can answer that by looking at the teacher. If the teacher has a heart's desire for evangelism, the class will have a heart's desire for evangelism. Everybody follows the leader. Will everybody in the class have a heart for evangelism? Nope. But a large majority of them will. It's amazing in our Sunday school class The minute Brad Dyer decided to get involved in faith evangelism, it's amazing how we went from having me in faith evangelism to having 5 or 6 men out of my class now in faith evangelism. Now, I was already in the class, and I'm the leader, but in the class, who's the leader? Brad Dyer's the leader. Alan's in that class. Brad got involved in faith evangelism. Next thing you know, we got 5 more men involved in faith evangelism. Because the leader had a heart for evangelism. All right? So number next, what is the real desire of your class toward new people coming into the church or coming into your class? Well, a lot of that has to do with what your desire is. Next, what is the real desire of your class towards starting a new class? Well, a lot of that has to do with you. What is the real desire of your class members toward mission projects and ministry? I can promise you that nobody in your class will get involved in mission projects or ministry if you as the teacher are not leading them to do a mission project or a ministry as a class. That's where it starts. If it starts in your class, then it can go outside of the class into bigger things. Next, what is the real desire of your class members towards setting and reaching goals? A lot of that has to do with you. A lot of teachers I found out don't like to set goals because they're afraid if I don't reach them, I'll be a failure. That's not true. That's not true. Let's say you set a simple goal. Our Sunday school class goal is to enroll 1 person per month for 12 months. All right? Now, let's say you average 10 people in your Sunday school class. And your goal is to enroll 1 person per month for 12 months. Okay? Now, if you were to enroll 12 people on average, 40% of them will attend every Sunday in the next 12 months. So your attendance will go from 10 to 14 just by enrolling 1 person per month for a year. All right? So let's say we did that by 10 Sunday school classes who did that. That means our goal is to enroll 120 people in a year just from 10 Sunday school classes, right? So on average, about 50 to 55 people in average Sunday school attendance will increase the next 12 months based on the average of what we have here at the church of our average attendance, okay? What if we didn't reach 120? Man, what if we enrolled 100? Would we be failures? No. You know why? Because that means 40 more people would be in Sunday school because we tried to enroll 120, but we only enrolled 100. This is the way it was about setting goals for mission offerings. When I came, I don't remember who all was in the room. Annette, you may have been there. Ms. Francis, you may have been in there. I met with the WMU and we started talking about the Annie Armstrong Easter offering going. I went, well, it's ridiculously too low. Well, how much do we have? We ought to double it. I went, double it? And they looked at me like, this new preacher has lost his mind. Double it. I said, okay. I don't remember what it was. Let's say it's $5,000. Yeah, because see, so if we double it and say our goal is $10,000, you know what we'll do? We may take up $8,500. Would that have been better than $5,000? $8,500 in your bank account better than $5,000? Yeah, sure is. But what we did was we not only doubled our goal, but we surpassed the goal that was doubled. So then the Lord even got greater glory and victory in it. So it's really an awesome thing like that. So that's kind of what we're talking about there. So it's not really failure. Desire. All right, number 5, you must have determination. Determination. Romans 12, 1 and 2. Therefore, brothers, by the mercy of God, I urge you to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your spiritual worship. Do not be conformed to this age, but be transformed by the renewing of your minds, so that you may discern what is good, pleasing, and perfect will of God. 2 Corinthians 2:2. For I didn't think it was a good idea to know anything among you except Jesus Christ and Him crucified. What those verses show is determination. So the question here is then, what are you determined to do in your class during this next quarter? You just started a brand new quarter Sunday. You're going to start a brand new quarter Sunday, right? Isn't that right? December 2nd. Didn't you get new literature yesterday, Sunday? You start a new quarter Sunday. 3 months, 13 weeks are ahead of you. What are you determined to do over the next 3 months? That's where it starts. You got to think about it in terms of where do I want to be a year from now. What are you going to do? What are some things you can do right now? I am determined Then the next 3 months, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna organize my class to do follow-up. I'm gonna organize 3 fellowships. I'm gonna get people to help me do what? What are you gonna do, whether it be children's class, a youth class, or an adult class? What are things you're gonna do? Like if I had a children's class, I would want in the next 3 months, I'd want to sit down and write a personal letter to every child. Children love getting mail. Every child. If I had kids on my roll that didn't come, my goal in the next 3 months is between now and revival time, I'm going to visit every home of every child that's not attending my Sunday school class. That'd be the kind of things I'd be doing. That'd be my goal. Over 3 months, could you do those 2 things? Yes. You sure could. Could you do it with adults? Yes. Especially if you got some goers in your class that will help you. All right? How about next year? See, you got to figure out what you're determined to do next year. And here's how you do it. You write it down. You pass it out. You send it out to their class. You post it on the wall of your room. You set clear goals. You get the class's input. You don't compromise with the critics. And you're determined that no matter what, we're going to follow through on this plan. We're going to follow through on this plan. Because the only way to fail in doing it is to do nothing. That's the only way to fail. You may not reach all of your goals, but if you reached half of them, that's probably more than what happened the year before, right? So determination. Here's the last one, biggest one, we're finished. Number 6, you must have the right attitude. Now, let me say this. You can have all the right methods, but if you got the wrong attitude, it doesn't matter what methods you are or how good they are. The attitude of the teacher sets the tone for the class. Here's what I know. We're going to be talking about building a new building. By December the 9th, you're going to walk into this building in the Welcome Center and in the vestibule. And you're going to be able to see on boards this big outside renderings of the new building. You're going to be able to see the floor plan of the new building, and you're going to see the site plan. There'll be people like Deanne and Alan and Richie and Dudley and Randy Crow and Sherry Martin, and they'll all be there to answer your questions, all right, at these places. Now, you as the teacher, your attitude toward building a new building will determine whether or not we build a new building. You know why? Because if you go to your class starting December 9th and you go, did y'all see the building? Is that not awesome? Is it not awesome to think that we have the opportunity to reach people who haven't even been born yet long after we're gone with the gospel of Jesus Christ if Jesus doesn't come again? Isn't it awesome to think that we're building a building that no one else in our community will have anything like it? Isn't it amazing to think that we're going to be building a building that will give us enough Sunday school space to grow our Sunday school to over 1,000 in Sunday school? Isn't it amazing to think that we're going to have the kind of building that we can do recreational events and do sporting type events and do ministry type events in that particular facility that we can't do right now with what we have? Isn't it amazing to think that we can do ministries and expand our ministries like our missions and divorce care and grief share and lifeline recovery in that new building that we can't do in the building we have right now? Isn't it amazing to think that every year we can bring in 2 and 3 and 4 and 10 mission teams into our association, into our church, that can stay in that building and use those showers and use that kitchen and use that gymnasium and use those classrooms and that worship space? Isn't it amazing that we can now host every kind of event that the Tennessee Baptist Convention holds in that new building other than the annual meeting? Do you know that we can host the WMU event, we can host the men's ministry event, we can host evangelism events, we can host Sunday school events? There's no event put on by our state convention that can't come to West Tennessee and be held in the new building that we're about to build. Is that not amazing? And when you get excited about it, guess what will happen in your class? Your class will get excited about it. People follow the leader. If you go in there and go, I don't know about this building. First of all, it looks different than the buildings we have right now. It's not even the same color. And I really don't like the fact that we're going to have to give up about 20 parking spaces right there, because that's where I like to park. And I really don't know what's going to do for me, because I'm not going to go over there and use a gymnasium. You know, I don't care. I'm going to go to worship in the sanctuary. I'm not going to go to any kind of worship over there in that worship building. And I don't even know what we're going to do. I'm going to pay for it. I mean, it costs a lot of money. Will the people in your class be for the building? What I'm trying to explain to you is your attitude toward the things of God determines and sets the tone, the attitude of your class toward the things of God. The old saying is true. Attitude determines your altitude. Said in Philippians 2:5, make your attitude that of Christ Jesus. Your attitude is basically how you choose to view problems, as well as difficult people, circumstances, and situations. That's your attitude. The difference between a successful teacher and leader and the unsuccessful is often the attitude of the leader and his or her ability to handle difficult situations and difficult people. I'm of the glass is half full person by nature. All right? I would say for the most part, our entire church staff is that way. But I came from a church where I had 2 staff members. The glass was always half empty, no matter what it was. And so the biggest thing I had to work with them on was their attitude about everything. Because they would make us or break us based on their attitude. You know, you can't very well be the music leader and have a bad attitude, can you? You can't very well be the student minister and have a bad attitude, right? And so, you know, that was one of the things that had to be worked on all the time. And so it's good to be a glass is half full kind of person, but if you're not, it's got something to do with your attitude. It's how you handle, the way you view the world, the way you view problems. Now, some people look at opportunities and all they see are problems. Okay? Some people who are negative can make problems out of every solution. Some people look at difficulties and all they see are opportunities. I'm that guy. You give me a problem, I'll find you a solution. The bigger the problem, the bigger the solution need. I'm a problem solver. Okay, we don't have enough space in the church. All right? The thing that people come ask me is, what are we going to do if we don't build the building? What if the church doesn't vote to build the building right now? What are we going to do? Because, I mean, our church has got to have more space to grow, does it? Yep, sure does. What are we going to do?
No.
I got a plan. I got a plan. Because, you see, there's a problem that has to be solved, and good leaders find solutions to hard problems. And you don't just have one plan. You got to have multiple plans. So if plan A doesn't work, you got a plan B and you got a plan C. So you got to be ready at all the times. And it's all about your attitude, the way you look at problems, and the way you look at difficult people, all right? So you got to see for space. What about new building needs? What about growth? What about the need for more leaders? I'm told all the time by pastors in our association, well, we can't do any of those things. We don't have any new leaders we don't have any leaders. I said, have you enlisted any? No. Have you trained any leaders? No. When's the last time you've done any leadership training in your church? You've been pastor there 10 years. How much leadership training have you done in your church? Well, I took them to this event that they had about a couple of years ago, the association. That's the problem. You see, the problem is not that we don't have leaders. The problem is we haven't enlisted the leaders. We think that in the Baptist church what you have to do is say, who wants to come help us? Who will come and teach this class with us? Who will come and help the kids? Who will come and help the teenagers? Will somebody come and please drive the bus? Will somebody come and do that? Since when can you get anything done in the Baptist church that way? Do you think that's how Jesus did that? Mm-mm. When Jesus decided to call disciples, what did he do? He went right over there where Levi was sitting right there at the tax collector booth. He said, hey Levi, I need you to come and follow me. Right? And he went down where the fishermen were by the seashore, and he went down where they were. And he said, hey guys, listen, put down your nets. I need Peter, I need you, Simon, and I need you, and I need you, and I need you guys to come on and follow me. All right? In fact, the one time in the Bible that there was this guy that said, hey, Jesus, man, I want to volunteer. I want to volunteer. You know what Jesus said? He said, look, he said, foxes have no den, got no place to lay my head, birds of the air have no nest. He said, you just go home and tell them what good things the Lord's done for you. The one volunteer Jesus had, he didn't get. He didn't take. You know why? Volunteers will quit. If you want new leaders, what you got to do is you got to go and enlist people. You got to sit down with them. You got to explain to them what you want, what needs to happen, what needs to be done, what's expected, how you can resource them, how you can train them, how you can help them, and how they're going to be successful, and cast the vision to them about what can it look like next if you were just willing to take one step of faith. That's how it works. So what is your attitude about your class? What about the church? Toward the mission of the church, toward the accountability of Connect One in your class. All right, your attitude will do one of two things, real quick and we're done. Defeat you or bring you to victory. It will dull your vision or it will sharpen your vision. Your attitude will cause you to decline or it will cause you to grow. Your attitude will help you frown or to put a smile on your face. Your attitude will bring shame to the name of Jesus or to bring Him glory. Your attitude will make your ministry a drudgery or it will make ministry a joy based on your attitude. Your attitude will make you see things as impossible or possible. It all comes back to attitude. So what are the 6 things we need? What's the first one? Burden. What's the second one?
Urgency.
Urgency. Third one is?
Vision.
Vision. Fourth one? Desire. And then we need determination. And the last is what?
Attitude.
Right attitude. You see what I mean? You've got to take the methods we're talking about. The methods. The tools of organization, etc. All these things we're talking about. How to start a new class. How to find prospects. How to do follow. All these things we've talked about. You've got to do it. But you've got to marry these 6 things to those things to be a really effective leader. And so I would say that in these 6 things, probably all of us we struggle with one or two of those things. Would we be honest to say that? Do we struggle with these 2 things? So one of the things to do is not take all of your focus on the one thing you struggle with, but the 3 or 4 other ones that you're really good at. Start really focusing more on those things, and normally what happens is the other 2 or 3 that you struggle with will start coming along with them. All right. What happens? Some people say, I've got a great vision, but the truth is I just don't have a lot of determination. I don't have a lot of desire to work with my folks and really get it done. Focus on the vision more and realize that vision becomes great enough in your heart to become a burden. And when that vision becomes a burden and you get a sense of urgency about it, all of a sudden, guess what will follow? Determination will follow. Desire will follow. And it'll change your whole attitude. Does that make sense to everybody? All right. Okay, guys. Now, one of the things you're going to see that's coming out and everything, we did decide that on Wednesday night, December the 19th, we're going to do the Sunday school parties on that night. The students are going to have theirs the week before. We have some other Sunday school classes that are having theirs early. All right? And Angela's already talked to people in those classes, some of those adults that will come and help us on Wednesday night. We're also getting, like for all the little bitty kids, the Mother's Day Out people, we're paying them to come and be here to take care of all the preschoolers, just like they do if it was Mother's Day Out day. All right? And so we're going to have plenty of help for all the kids. It's going to be from 5 to 8 o'clock. All right? So the kids can be dropped off at 5. They're going to come in. They're going to feed them, like chicken fingers and stuff like that. They're going to play some games, age-appropriate games. They're going to watch the Polar Express. They're going to have an intermission where they're going to give everybody a snack and play another game. Then they're going to watch the rest of the Polar Express. Okay? So that'll be fun for everybody's kids, right? That'll be here. And so that'll be a good night. And if you don't want to do yours on that night, you don't have to. But that's the only thing that'll be happening at the church that night. Okay? Is the kids. Okay? Anybody got any thoughts? Comments? Questions?
What time did you say the party was?
5 to 8 o'clock. 5 to 8 o'clock. That'll be plenty of time for Sunday school classes to have parties and do whatever, and still time to, get the kids home at a decent hour. Go to work the next day. I think school's out. So. All right. And if anybody can help with the float for the Christmas parade, we're in desperate need of people that can help. We've had a few folks that have helped, that said they would help. I think, Deanne, you're one of those people that said you would help maybe. We need more help. But what happened last year is we had a bunch of folks that said they were going to handle that, and we got to the day of it, and me and Bob and Ryan and Angela and Rachel and one other person put together the float. in that one day till I was about to pull my hair out. That won't ever happen again, I promise you. So we need to get it done in advance and do all those kind of things. It's gonna be really cute. This year, the theme up in town is first responders, honoring first responders. So our theme on our we're gonna have another Reeves Brothers flatbed 18-wheeler truck bed, and so we're gonna dress people up in shepherds and sheep, because in the Bible, who were the first responders in the Bible that responded to the angel? Shepherds. Shepherds are the original first responders, folks. And so we're going to dress them up as first responders, the shepherds. So that'll be fun. A bunch of the kids will be the sheep. It'll be really nice. It'll be a lot of fun.
What is the night of the parade?
The 10th, December the 10th.
Do you know when they're gonna be up here working on the float?
I do not. We're going to find out when we're going to be able to get the trailer